Throughout my life, I have experienced many strange occurrences over the years, but none as strange as a series of events I'm about to explain. One of which was single-handedly the most terrifying experience of my life. It was the spring of 2019. I was in a relationship that was very toxic. One cold night, I fell asleep and woke up in a lucid dream. I was in a state of astral projection, meaning my material body was no more. I was traveling through a field at a high speed until I came to a screeching halt in front of a set of trees. And then she appeared, the triple-headed goddess. She had 3 beautiful faces and was wearing a crown with long flowing hair. She stared at me for a moment and then spoke in a language that I hadn't heard before. It sounded ancient or alien. I understood her message as though it was spoken in plain English.
Do not look at the third face. Your path will change soon. You are not aligned with your true purpose,
she said. And then I woke up. Initially, I shrugged this off as a simple consolidation of thoughts, as this is generally what happens when we dream. I thought maybe I had watched a horror movie and this symbol somehow was generated in my mind. My mind decoded the message in a very practical way. So long story short, I broke up with the girl I was dating at the time, so the relationship ended. But as the days went by, this vision of this triple-headed goddess weighed on my mind. Oftentimes when we dream, we have the dream, you forget about it afterwards, but this specific dream, I just couldn't shake this vision out of my head. For some reason, my intuition decided to go on this deep spiritual path. So I started getting into meditation, I started getting into yoga. I've always been an open-minded person, so I've always been interested in seeking other ways of self-development. I don't think you can have self-development without a deep spiritual connection. And this is why I'm sharing this story. I started studying very deeply into different spiritual practices. And as I was studying, I stumbled across an image online that shocked me and I froze. In this image, I saw the triple-headed goddess in a very similar depiction to what I saw in my dream. I became obsessed with studying about her. I found out her name is Hecate. She's the goddess of the moon, the earth, and the water. She's a protector of people in liminary spaces or in transitionary periods in their life. And it just so happened at this time I was in a transitionary period. She protects the people she guides from harmful spirits. And she's the goddess of the crossroads, the transition to the afterlife. And she's also like a mediator between the material world and the spirit world. And I couldn't figure out why someone like me would have this experience. Is it possible that I had this vivid dream because I saw that image before? It's entirely possible, and being a skeptic, I don't rule this out. But is it probable? I don't think so. The reason why I doubt this is she's not represented in the mainstream. You don't see depictions of her. None of the religions that a lot of us are brought up in the Western world talk about these type of spiritual beings. It's very difficult to trace back her origin. Hecate is possibly of Turkish origin, or that she was from ancient Greece. There is a mythology with her in the ancient Greek pantheon. She has a connection to Persephone. I think she leads her out of Hades. In Turkey, they have just recently restored a temple of hers. I believe it was in the past couple of years. Reading up on her description, I found it very interesting that the description of her followed suit with where I was at in life. And every time I've had a manifestation of her, there was somebody around me that had bad intentions. There was somebody around me that was extremely toxic, posing as a good person. I don't want to say all toxic people are bad people. I don't think that they're all bad people. A lot of them have insecurities and they haven't dealt with their internal problems. They use it against people sometimes as a defense mechanism. I've had other encounters with her, and it hasn't just been one encounter. I've had multiple encounters with a maternal deity, and I would attribute it to her because every time she has come into my life, there was someone around me that had a malicious intent towards me. Which brings me to the next story. This next story I'm about to explain is single-handedly the most terrifying experience of my life. I'm going to describe this experience because this was the most profound experience I had ever had in this specific context. It was a cool autumn night in November. I was in a business partnership with a friend, and I use that term loosely. I was counting the profit from one of our projects when all of a sudden, a cold gust of wind circled the room. The temperature felt like it had dropped 10 degrees. The wind kept circling around me, and a sharp nail poked me in the center of my back. I was startled as an unsettling feeling of terror overcame me. I immediately ran out of the room and headed down the stairs. I sat in a chair, paralyzed in fear. Through the corner of my eye, I noticed something happening near the front door. A woman wearing a black cloak appeared from out of the ground, and she stood there staring at me. She stared at me for a good 20 seconds, and then she smiled. She disappeared shortly afterwards. After 10 seconds of her staring at me, I knew I wasn't in danger. I figured that if something was gonna happen to me, it would have happened already. I had a lot of trauma after this. I really struggled with this situation because this was a visual manifestation that had happened, not in a dream. I was completely lucid. I have since had psychiatric evaluation. I've seen therapists, I've explained to them this story, and they have concluded that I don't have any underlying psychiatric conditions that would cause a hallucination. The therapist I was talking to had told me to seek out a spiritual advisor. I ended up searching long and hard for an actual spiritual advisor. And I had mentioned in a previous video that I was born Christian, Catholic. Some Christians might not consider Catholics Christian, but I was born into Christianity. I held a strong belief that Jesus was my savior, Jesus is God. And I couldn't find anything in our literature. I couldn't find anybody who could make sense of what I was experiencing. I really struggled with this. I'm being honest about this story, I'm not lying. I want to be authentic as possible. And I was beside myself with sharing this story at the expense of looking like I'm not of sound mind. I also am a little bit apprehensive about sharing this story because I know some of the people that are watching might be Christian, and I know this type of stuff is offensive to anybody that follows these Abrahamic dogmatic religions. They have their own theories about what this is, and I couldn't find any clarity when I was going back to the Bible, when I was going back to the teachings. Nothing provided clarity for these experiences. I searched long and hard until I actually found somebody who completely made sense of it. She had told me that this spirit is overseeing me, it's a guide, and that she's watching over me, and that she doesn't show me what her true form is because I won't listen to her, which I found very interesting because the manifestations of her have been this triple-headed goddess as well as this cloaked woman, and I've seen her in dreams when I was in another toxic relationship. I know I've been through a bunch of toxic relationships. It happens. I'm sure at some points I've probably been toxic as well. I'm not perfect either. Every time she came around, it was almost like a nudge saying this person is not good for you. After I had engaged in this business with this friend, he went from being my best friend, being the nicest guy in the world, to being one of the most malicious people I've ever met. Once we stopped being friends, I stopped having these manifestations of her. And now, because my life has gotten a lot better, I'm in a lot better place, I have a lot smaller of a circle of friends, I don't find that I have these manifestations as much anymore. The reason why I'm sharing this is one of my subscribers had mentioned something about some paranormal activity that he thought I was experiencing in one of my other videos. And I wanted to share this because I think it's a very interesting story. It's not just a story though, it's actually true. This happened to me. It wasn't only these two experiences. I've had a couple of manifestations since this one of which my friend had experienced. We were smoking a cigar on a patio and a woman pushed her head against the glass door right in front of both of us. We both saw it. I had asked my friend after the fact, what did you see? And he said, I saw a woman and she pushed her face against the door and she disappeared again. And there was nobody in the house. This isn't the first time, it's not the second time, this was the third time this happened. In the beginning, I used to be terrified of all these things, but I've gotten to the point that it doesn't scare me anymore. And it was a big part of my spiritual development, starting to understand that there's more to spirituality, there's more to what we experience outside of just this material existence, and also outside of what I was taught growing up. It forced me to open my eyes to other ideas. Coming on to YouTube really helped me with connecting with other people that had a similar experience. I did find there were other people who had an experience with Hecate, and it was very comforting because I didn't have anyone to talk to about this, and it was a struggle. There was an English writer, he's an occultist, and I don't like using that word because I know that a bunch of people get offended by it, but all it means is hidden knowledge. He wrote a book about Hecate and his experiences with her, and they're limited books. I started digesting a lot of the information he was talking about because he seemed to know other stuff about her that's not written in literature. Another thing that I struggled with in studying this is that being raised Christian and Catholic, there is no maternal deity. There's no talk of any of the angels being female. Everything is male. And it's very interesting that I grew up thinking Jesus was God. I grew up thinking God was a male, and all my spiritual experiences were with a female. And I've seen a lot of these atheist debates where the atheists say, why is it that whenever someone has an experience, they have an experience with their own God from their own religion? You're watching this, you probably don't even know what Hecate is. This was such a profound experience that I actually had her tattooed to my arm. So I have this tattoo. This was the second tattoo I got. I got this tattoo because this was such a profound experience and it sent me on a very spiritual path. I want to share more of these experiences because YouTube really helped me with navigating this. I really felt connected with people I didn't even know, and I was really happy to see that there was other people who had similar experiences to me. It was comforting. I felt very alienated by this for a really long time, and I couldn't figure out why it was happening to me. I have a deep belief in God. I believe in being a moral person. I went from Christianity to this New Age nonsense, and I found out that New Age is a hyper-materialistic, hedonistic rebellion against the dogmatic religions. I've bounced around from different religions. I truly believe that this was Hecate. I actually believe that she was communicating with me. And there is a possibility that that might actually be God. There are books written that she was actually the creator of the universe. There was no priest, there was no pastor, there was no relative that could make sense of this. I did have a friend tell me to read the Bible. I read the Bible and still no clarity. Reading the Bible in turn actually made me deconstruct my faith. I really hope I don't offend anybody that's watching this. I don't have anything against people who have different belief systems. Sometimes we go through experiences in life and we can't ignore what's going on, and educating myself and understanding this made my life a lot better. It's interesting calling myself a skeptic after having this experience because skeptics usually are atheists. They don't believe in the supernatural, but I don't have a choice. I've had these anecdotal experiences multiple times. I know they're subjective. You might not believe me. I'm telling the truth. Maybe some of you watching have had a similar experience, and I hope that we can connect. I hope this gives you some clarity. If you thought this was interesting, if you've had a paranormal experience, if you want to hear more of my paranormal stories, let me know in the comments. If you can like and subscribe this video, I would really appreciate it. It helps me get this message out to more people, and it helps me build this channel. I really want to add more value to this channel with these type of videos. I know my experiences are very unique and they've helped me become a better person. That's all I got for this video. Until the next one, have a good morning, have a good afternoon, have a good evening. See you in the next video. I'm out.